So, in case you're new to my channel, my name is Crop Cutie, and I got my heart broken for the very first time this year. I'm featuring my good friend, and we're going to talk about starting to date late. I guess my first thing for you, my first thing that I'm thinking about when I think about dating late, or when I think about relationships, I think about like not having permission to date. Like I think about my parents being very strict at home. Like you're gonna go to school, you're gonna get good grades, and you're gonna come home, and you're gonna do your chores. So like I guess ultimately for you, why do you think you started dating late?
I mean, I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. It was kind of similar for me. I was living with my mom, and she was really strict, and all she cared about, I mean, not all she cared about, but like the main thing she cared about and wanted me to care about was school. So she was like, you go to school, you come back from school, you do your homework. When it came to like hanging out with my friends, that was very secondary, like something that was like optional. She never really talked to me about dating, but it just, I don't know, it was just like not a thing, for me. And yeah, and yeah, I think I'm trying to think of like what my introduction to sex was. I feel like I, I don't know what my like introduction to sex was, but just like when I think of like sexuality in general and like me thinking about sex, I think about it from like or just like sex and like sensuality. I think about it from like a very young age actually, and like because I feel like I grew up in Cairo in Egypt, and when I was growing up, my mom had this this business, like this office for translating, and she would work with a lot of people, and I would meet like a lot of people, and was always like running around, you know, hanging out with different people, like just being like that kid who was always hanging out with adults and like being funny and like all this stuff. Um, yeah, and also like was I just experienced like a lot of like sexual harassment as a kid, so I feel like my first introduction to sexuality was actually other people sexualizing me, and me being like, what is this thing? And me like trying to figure out like what sensuality is, um, in my own way, and like what is like a way that sensuality can feel like empowering for me. Um, and I think my version of that was like, um, just I don't know, like like watching a lot of like old Egyptian movies and like seeing, you know, like what like the heroines would do or like the protagonists would do, and be like, oh my god, like this is sensuality. This is what it means to be like attractive and like all of that. Um, yeah, and I don't know. I can go on and like so many details, but yeah. Um, but yeah, when I think of like introduction to sexuality, I think of that, even though I think I was too young to know that's what it was at the time. Yeah.
So in eighth grade, my friends started pairing off, and I kind of felt like left out. So I kind of like really dig deeper into like reading romance novels and like building fantasies in my mind of what my husband or my boyfriend would look like. And then on Friday nights, my friends would all go skating at the skating rink in town. And that was like my one time to really interact with boys because at school, I mean, I was kind of like either in detention or like I had to get my work done. I had to like see, this was like my chance to see the teacher and make sure I understood my work because my parents were like, if you don't graduate high school, Corvette, Corvette. So, you know, I was like really focused on that. And so then, like, when I would go to the skating rinks, my dad and my brother would pick me up, and the boy that I thought was just like my dream guy, he was all of the heroes in my romance novels, but not even close. Like, looking back on it, I think I just romanticized him. But anyway, so he was like all of those people in the book. And when he saw my dad and my brother coming into the skating rink, he kind of like pushed me out of the way. And I think that like that experience kind of traumatized me into feeling like boys and family aren't supposed to be coexist in the same space, or like there was like shame around dating. So I always have been like a really big family oriented person. So for me, being with my family was like my top priority until I got to college. And then it was kind of like, well, it would be nice to like complain to my boyfriend about how my work isn't done. Or I would see like some of my friends like going and like doing cute things for like holidays like Valentine's Day or Sweetest Day. And I'm like, well, my mom's going to give me those sweet tarts. So for you, when did you finally start wanting to date or wanting to be in a relationship?
That's a great question. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know. I feel like I was like really into romance from like for a really long time. Like, yeah, I feel like I've been really into romance, but I was also like shy about it. So again, going back to watching like old Egyptian movies, I would watch that and then I remember like when like the two protagonists or whatever would kiss, like I would literally like I would be so embarrassed. I'd be like, like oh my god, like like just like so um but yeah, but I feel like I had like all these ideas about romance in movies, and I remember thinking like, oh my god, like being in a relationship is like a thing to aspire to. Like, oh, one of the greatest things you could achieve in life is being desired by someone else romantically. Um, and I I didn't really feel like that was me. I really didn't feel like that was me. I didn't feel like that was me in middle school. I didn't feel like that was me in high school, especially. I was really nerdy. I was very focused on my schoolwork. And no one really ever like told me they had a crush on me or anything. So I was like, okay, well people like don't find me attractive and like don't like me like that.
Oh my goodness. Before you go further, can I just say shout out to all of the girls who didn't get picked by boys in middle school and high school. I'm in the club too. It's so weird when they inbox you now and they're like, you're so beautiful. And it's like, dude, you used to laugh to your friends and say I was ugly and that you'd never touch me. And now you're like, you're gorgeous. I'm like,
Yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah, and it was really interesting because like I feel like growing up, like, yeah, I had a lot of like weird experiences with like, yeah, older people like harassing me and stuff like that. But also like I feel like I had like very what feels like very like natural, like or what I hear is like natural, like normal, like just curiosity about like body and sexuality and stuff um with like yeah with other people. Okay, so backing up a little bit, I was still curious about sexuality and dating a lot, and my answer for that, so when I initially moved here I lived with my dad for a year, and my answer for that when I lived with my dad became like playing like I don't know if you've heard of this game, but there's a game called Sims Girls, that's like online. Do you?
the virtual world of my childhood.
Yes. Yeah, dude. So that was like my answer to like being curious about sexuality was just like doing like this like dating sims game. Um yeah, and then I remember like I would go on like online chats and like chat with people and stuff like that.
Were you on AOL?
Well, okay, so AOL, I was on it with my friends, but I think I was like on this other website like Omegle. Omegle. It was like the less scary like chat roulette, because it was just text. It was just like yeah.
So you were saying that you backed up to the virtual world to Sims and to online messaging. But what, so is that how you like got your introduction to wanting to be in a relationship? Because I feel like being curious about sex and sexuality and like actually having that desire to be with someone else feels slightly different for me. Does it feel different for you?
Where I was trying to go with that was like, I just wanted to say that like I resonate with what you're saying about feeling that like, or I guess that's not exactly how you said it, but you were saying like you felt like dating someone and family needed to be separate, like those separate kind of like things. And I think for me at that time, that also felt true. Like I felt, oh, like my parents wouldn't understand this is something I want, and therefore like I need to keep it a secret. Um, and yeah, and then I guess like kind of fast forwarding a little bit, when I like toward the end of my high school, I went on this program to St. Louis, Missouri, um, where I was like taking these like college classes. It was like this program like that my brother had paid for and like all this stuff. But that was like my first time away from home without my parents, and people in my like cohort that summer, like they were like dating each other and stuff like that and hooking up and all those things. And I didn't know anything about all of that, but I just remember like this one guy, like I remember people being interested in me and being like, "Oh my God, what's your type? What's your type of person?" Like blah blah blah. And really, like for me, that was the first time that someone expressed like wanting to be with me in any way, like that I also felt attracted to. Um, yeah, and I think for me that was like a shift where I was like, "Oh my God, like it's not that I'm unattractive, it's like I'm just not like anyone's type, who is in my class maybe, or maybe people are shy, or maybe blah blah, or like maybe I'm just like so uncool that, you know, people don't want to be with me." But it was like the first time that I was like, "Oh my God, no, someone can be attracted to me. It's just like it has to be like the right type of person." Um yeah, and then like a year later I went off to college, and that was really the case in college. Like in undergrad, that's really when I started feeling attractive, because it was like a much, yeah. Was that the same for you too?
When I got to college, that was when I first started. I don't think it was when I first started feeling attractive, but I do feel like that was when boys started like paying me more attention, giving me more of a second look, wanting to take me on dates and like wanting like asking me for my phone number, asking my friends for my phone number, like things like that. It felt more like there was intentionality about pursuing me. Whereas, like in middle school, high school, those things, it would be because we were at a hangout and I was there, they might pay me attention or something of that nature. It was never as intentional as it was in college.
So yeah, same. Like, yeah, college was where it was at. Um, yeah, and then in college, like I started making friends, and like you start talking, comparing experiences and things like that. And I think in college, that was when I started being really aware that like I'm one of the few like versions around, like in my group of friends. Or actually, I don't know if that's true. Not few. Well, because I'm thinking of like like some of my best friends in college, and I feel like that was true for them too. Like they were all, especially toward the beginning of college, like they all hadn't had sex before, or like a lot of them hadn't had sex. But it kind of felt like, oh, okay, this is like it. It kind of was starting to enter the territory where like it's no longer cool. Like this is something people are experiencing more and doing more of and stuff like that. I had a couple of experiences where like I almost hooked up with people in undergrad, but I was like too scared. I didn't tell them I'd never had sex, and I was too scared to have sex with them, so I just like didn't, and I was just acting really weird and awkward. There was like one person that I almost had sex with, and then I remember I think I just like left and didn't say anything, or there was just a lot of confusion and like lack of communication. And also I was like, I didn't really know a lot about like I did, yeah, because I hadn't had those experiences. I didn't know that much about like how to approach consent and like how to I don't know, I didn't feel like I could ask a lot of questions. I just felt a lot of shame, and like other people know more than me, and I should just not ask questions, like not. when it comes to sexuality, not when it comes to like relationships, not when it comes to anything really having to do with boys. Um, yeah, it was like, yeah. And then I finally started dating. I had my first boyfriend was when I was 19. And I started dating him the summer between my freshman and sophomore year in college. And I thought he was so cool. I thought he was so cool, so radical. So we did it on and off for a year, and then we didn't. And but I feel like I didn't feel like I deserved or was worthy of like transparency and information and equal power in that relationship. I was like, oh, he's the guy. He he's older, whatever, and he's doing his thing, he's really busy, he's doing X, Y, and Z. And I felt like this need to just like be there, be happy for whatever attention I got from him, not ask too many questions, not really, care too much about what I wanted out of the relationship. Um,
I feel like because I started dating late, I feel like a lot of the lessons that I was supposed to learn younger, I didn't learn. So then, like now in adulthood, I feel like it set me up a lot more for disappointments that I should have experienced when I was younger. So I feel like novice or naive to certain things because it's like when I think about dating and relationships, I feel like there should always be this trust. Like if you're telling me what's happening, then I trust you. I also feel like when you've been dating for a while, you have this discernment, you have this like level of caution to you that protects you. It's like a shield or a cloak of honor that's like you can foresee that something's not going right or you can foresee something's not right. Instead of having this innate desire to fix it or work on it, you're like, okay, well, I've already experienced heartbreak, so I know what that feels like and this is not worth it. Whereas I feel like for me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel that. It's already starting to feel sad. Let me do whatever I can to fix this so I don't feel that sadness. Does that make sense? Have you been there as a late bloomer?
Yeah, I mean, even with this, with this boyfriend, like learning, like, hey, like, and what's so funny? So me and that boyfriend, I mean, I call him my boyfriend because I consider him my boyfriend. I don't know what was his perspective on the whole thing, or if he even liked labels. He probably was too cool for labels, but it doesn't matter. Um, but I remember, like, I had a conversation with him, after we were done dating, like maybe a year later. And I remember that, I think that was my first heartbreak, I would say, because I remember it felt so bad. I remember like being really depressed and like all of that. And I had never felt my self-worth destroyed to that extent before.
Oh my goodness, this is exactly how the first heartbreak earlier this year felt for me. And I thought I was the only person who ever felt that. So I felt so much shame around it because people never really talk about that part. They never talk about the depression or the sadness or like your self worth decreasing or you feeling shame or like, this is all my fault, or whatever. There are so many things to unlearn and unpack, but at the same time, there's so much to feel and so much to enjoy and so much to regret. But I mean, don't get me wrong, there are things that, like, I'm not saying that dating should be shameful or you should regret everyone that you meet or that every heartbreak has to be a regret. But I'm just saying, I feel like there's so many things that you should learn or have learned. Okay, anyway, thank you for being here. I love you so much. You're the best. Lots of
Love you, Carla. Okay, keep me posted. Okay, keep me posted on this.